Hello, folks. Welcome to the second episode of Founders Gyaan, where we do Founders Ka Gyanve and sprinkle it with a tarka of Gyaan. I'm your host, Mansi Matreta, and today we have Mr. Rostow Ravanan with us. Mr. Rostow Ravanan is one of the co-founders of Mindtree Limited, a specialized IT services company founded in 1999. He held the title of Chief Executive Officer and MD from 2016 to 2019 after previously serving in many roles in the company. Currently, Mr. Rostow Ravanan is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Alpha Heaven Corporations. He's also a Director at Teleradiology Solutions, Chairperson of NASCOM, among other responsibilities. He's a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and Institute of Company Secretaries of India and an alumni of Harvard Business School. Hi, Rostow. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Mansi. One minor correction. I'm chairperson at NASCOM Foundation, not of NASCOM. It's two different organizations.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, not at all. Please go ahead.
Okay, so for this interview, we'll be having two sections. The first section will be called as Gyaan section, wherein we'll be asking you some knowledgeable questions and taking some insights, and followed by a fun section wherein we'll be asking you some funny questions where you can drop the curtain of being the CEO and become who you actually are. So, shall we begin?
Of course, I have a feeling I'll enjoy the fun section more than the Gyan
Yeah.
section, but go ahead.
Sure. So the first question of Gyaan section is describe in 6.5 words what made you start this company. 0.5 word is for your favorite exclamation, punctuation mark.
Too much nervous energy. So I think I finished it in less than 6.5 words today. But basically, too much nervous energy. I couldn't sit at home, not do anything. So which is why I wanted to take some important problem that the world has and go solve it.
Oh, great. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Describe one best memory in your journey of becoming the CEO.
The responsibility and the ability to serve others. I sincerely believe that the youngest members in your team are the ones who are usually facing the customer, and the oldies in the team usually stand behind the youngsters. And our responsibility is to ensure that those who are facing customers solve the customer's problem, because that's the only way to build a sustainable business. So the responsibility of a leader is to serve those who are facing the customers.
True, correct. But I think the oldies inspire the youngsters. So yeah,
Mm.
definitely they are the spine.
Mm.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. What is a unique trait of your personality which you believe makes you a successful CEO?
I'll sort of cheat a little bit and serve and save two. The first, I think, is a very underappreciated quality, but I think it's still important, and that is hard work. If you have become a CEO, you couldn't have gotten there without a lot of hard work. And to stay successful as a CEO, I think it requires a lot of hard work, mentally, physically, etc. So the first attribute I would think is hard work, and the second I think is becoming increasingly more important is empathy. Because there's very little things you're doing on your own. Almost all the things you're doing are with other people as part of teams, whether it's a proposal to a customer or solving a delivery problem, or in whatever role you play as a leadership responsibility, you're always dealing with other people. So the second trait that successful leaders have is empathy. It's also difficult because in a CEO's responsibility, if you hold the CEO's responsibility, usually people only come to you with problems. Because if it is something simple and it can be solved, everybody else would have solved it. Only the toughest problems come to you. And to solve those problems sometimes is partly a question of knowledge and contacts and other kind of harder skills. But the most successful CEOs also dose it with a big amount of empathy, and that's how they find the right solution for problems.
True. I think these traits is what make employees look forward to the CEOs and they get inspired by that. So for sure. Okay, so the next question is being a CEO, you have a lot of meetings all day, and then how do you manage to retain all that? And what is your go-to way for relaxing?
I think the way I retain information is by taking lots of notes. Sometimes people make fun of me saying that my notes are not minutes of the meeting, it's more seconds of the meeting. Otherwise, I realize that I lose track of a lot of things. So I usually carry my laptop or my iPad into the meeting and I take a lot of notes. The advantage is that you can take down notes digitally. Unlike in the past, when I started my career, take my notebook and my pen with the meeting. But the problem is then you have to transcribe it. Otherwise, if it is not digitally stored, then searching for it, etc., becomes a pain. But the advantage is now you have lots of good note-taking apps. So I take notes on a digital device. So that's the way I retain my memory. Um, my favorite relaxation usually is going for a walk. My kids used to be at home with me. They are grown up and they are at university right now, just hanging out with them, hearing their day, etc. So time with family and just some time for reflection for myself, either in terms of going for a walk, things like that are what I do to relax.
Yeah. So I can take this takeaway from you because I'm still taking notes on notebook, but I'll also shift to digital.
Correct. Yeah. So it's an extremely therapeutic thing to write down. Your
Yeah.
memory also retains it more if you write down. So I can't, what shall I say, underemphasize the
Mm.
benefit of taking notes. The only downside of taking notes on a pen and a paper is that if you want to suddenly remember something that happened a year ago or in that meeting or a meeting where somebody said something, when any attribute of that meeting, if you suddenly want to go back and search, it's just more painful to do it in a physical pen and paper book there. Whereas if you take it down on, say, Microsoft OneNote or any other note-taking app, it's a lot easier to just archive and index and search. So that's the only advantage that digital notes have over pen and paper notes.
Yeah, we can just refer to it easily. True.
Correct.
Okay. So the next question is, people often have this misconception that CEOs are just relaxing at the back and people are working hard for them and they are just making money. So according to you, it's a misconception or truth?
Absolutely a misconception, especially if it's a CEO who's putting in their heart and soul into the job. Because just like everybody else, there are, obviously good CEOs and not so good CEOs. So the same statistical probability of distribution applies for CEOs as well. But anybody who's committed, anybody who's, doing their best in the role that they've been given, I think there's a lot of hard work today. Business is more complex. The issues are more complex. The problem that comes to you is more complex. For example, when I was CEO of Mindtree, you had to do all the things on a day-to-day from a business perspective. You have to interact with the board, you have to interact with the investors, and you have to be at your best and across all of those platforms, across all of those occasions. So I definitely don't think it's a relaxing job. It's a very high stress, very complex, very difficult job. And secondly, you also have to keep in mind the amount of things that you need to switch. So it's not just in terms of demanding physically, like for example, there's travel and many other aspects that exhaust you physically, but it's also very tough mentally because you're always juggling some 10 thoughts in your head. There's something that needs to be done right now, something that needs to be done today, something that needs to be done next week, something you're planning for next year, and all of those kind of things as well there. But lastly, for me, I think the other reason why the job is hard is sometimes you have to make very difficult people decisions. For example, come appraisal time, what ratings do you give your team? What salary increases do you give? Who do you keep? Who do you change? And all of those are just an example of one decision there. But the last point that I'd like to make in terms of the difficulty of the job is that it's also the job where the buck stops, right? So if you did not do well, if the company did not do well, organization did not do well, you are ending up having to hold the can for it. But what could have gone wrong could be market forces, could be bad luck, could be whatever, things internal or external to the company. But everybody immediately blames the leader. I mean, for example, if you see today's paper, India had a whitewash of this cricket series against New Zealand, but half the articles are against the team selectors, the team captain, the coach, and whatever there. Whereas it couldn't have been only them that lost the three matches, right? I mean, the batsmen failed, the bowlers failed, the fielders failed, and everybody would have not done their best, which is why the team failed. But the responsibility for anything that goes wrong inevitably rests with the leader, and that is a very difficult responsibility to bear. Um, so for all of these reasons, I think the job of a CEO is, very difficult. It requires a lot of hard work there. But the second part of your question was pay. I think linking to the first part, therefore, a good pay for a capable CEO is inevitable because you can't otherwise motivate people to come, give their best, take on that role, take on that hard work, and still continue to hold the responsibility for the success of the organization. So I think, therefore, it is logical that the CEO's pay will be higher. But what we also have to keep in mind is that a few people across both India and globally have just ended up getting very disproportionate amount of pay. So it is just a few individuals, maybe they don't have the appropriate checks and balances in their system, etc., and which is why their pay has gone out of control with the rest of the organization. So my recommendation would be to have a fair pay. The pay will naturally be higher than everybody else in the organization because the responsibilities are higher, but you can't also allow the sort of pay differential between, say, the highest paid person and the lowest paid person should have some kind of a logical parity. If not, either you increase the lower person's pay or you decrease the senior person's pay. But I think it's important to set pay packages fairly given the size of the responsibilities.
True. With power comes responsibility, but if something
Correct.
fails terribly, then all the criticism comes directly to the leaders.
Correct.
And it's so tough. Yeah. Okay. So the next question we have is, if you were in my shoes, how would you see yourself? Like, how would you want the CEO to be? They should be so inspiring, so that way.
If I was in your shoe, I would be like incredibly excited. I mean, the potential for the future is so high, especially if you're in a field like what we are in, which is technology. The amount of innovation, the amount of disruption, the amount of possibilities is just endless there. So if I could give anything that I have to come back to being 23, 24, or whatever age that you are in, I would do that in an instant. So just so much more excitement, so much more potential, so much more possibilities that exist for somebody who's younger. Um, Maybe the only thing I would do different is go back and learn a little bit of software programming. It's the one thing that I wish I had done when I was younger, because I think software is going to rule the world. Like Mark Andreessen said, software is going to eat the world there. So the one skill that I don't have, which I wish I had, was software programming. So I probably will invest some time to learn programming.
Yeah. But you own a company who have these skills, so
Yeah, but it's a different skill, right? I
yeah.
wish I could sort of go down to the grassroots and write lines of code or review lines of code myself there, because you can't, especially in a very young company, in a very small company, everybody needs to know all aspects of the business. And as a technology company, the fact that I don't know programming sometimes sort of bothers me. Again, I guess it's not so much a function of age. I mean, I can learn even if I want to. It just things become more difficult when you're older to pick up a new skill.
Yeah, true. Okay. So, yeah. How would you motivate someone who you know is escaping from their responsibilities?
I think classically, if you were to go back to Indian history, you had this concept called Samadhana Bheda Dhanda, right?
Yeah.
So I think notwithstanding the age of this statement, I think the principle still holds good. So if it's somebody who's not delivering to their full potential, the first thing is to just sit across the table and have a chat with them. Maybe it's something temporary. Maybe they had a loss in their family, or they're just going through a bad patch, etc. And if that is where to be the case, then you empathize with them, help them overcome that problem, and I'm sure they'll probably recover as soon as they overcome that issue, and they'll come back to being a fully productive team member there. If that is not the issue, if it's not something temporary, if it is not something that they're, maybe a health issue, like I said, or some other thing that's holding them back there, then it's a question of educating them. Maybe they just don't know. They don't know what work they're doing. They don't know how it connects to the rest of the world. What else is getting impacted if they don't do their work, etc. So maybe it is just lack of knowledge. Then you explain that to them, and hopefully a large number of people will then correct themselves once they realize, how their work impacts others and what impact their work has, etc. The third would be maybe it is just poor motivation. You whatever, give them appropriate rewards, some recognition, etc. There, and that could be the one that turns them around and helps them become a little bit more aware of their work, the context of their work, the implications of their work, and people will correct themselves there. But if all of these fail, then you also, by definition, have to have the, what shall I say, conviction to use the stick as well. When in which case you tell them, boss, better get this thing done. If you don't get it done, in spite of all the other explanations I've given you, if you still can't get this done, then it's going to pull the whole team down, etc. Because any chain is always only as strong as the weakest link, right? So then you also have to use the appropriate criticisms, corrective measures, penal measures, whatever is required based on the circumstance to help people come back to track there. Whether it's a large organization or a small organization, if everybody does not do their allotted responsibility, the organization as a whole fails. Everybody has a responsibility. If you're a janitor and you're cleaning the target toilet, you have a responsibility. If you're the CEO doing whatever strategic level stuff of a CEO, you have a responsibility. Everybody in between both of those ends of the spectrum have to do what they need to do. Otherwise, the organization will not succeed. So if people, in spite of the samadhana and bheda, don't work, then you also have to use the dhanda to help them come on track.
Yeah, I think this is also related to the second trait, that is the trait of a successful CEO. That is again being empathetic and supportive and
Correct.
understanding. So you have
Correct.
to be understanding towards your employees.
Correct.
Okay, so it was great for this GAN round, and we gained a lot of insights from you, and I hope it will help a lot of people who are watching this. Now it's time for fun section, wherein you can drop the curtain of being the CEO and be who you are. And funny answers would also be entertained here. So should
Okay.
we begin?
Absolutely. I'm the same. It's just one personality. It is not as though I have a CEO person. Obviously, sometimes maybe you're better dressed if you're going as like a whatever, like an important meeting, and you're probably dressed more casually. So appearances could change, but the personality doesn't change, at least for me.
Yeah, okay. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because I think that is the most asked question to the interviewees in the interviews. And I just want to see like how the answer comes from the other side of the table.
Hmm. I honestly have no clue. I don't even know what's going to happen 5 days from now. And I'm not talking from a sort of, what shall I say, philosophical perspective. That, if you go back to the Indian sort of mythology and scriptures, again, you don't even know if you're going to be alive for 5 years. But I'm not even coming from that kind of a philosophical angle. I am a kind of a person that makes very detailed plans, but also leaves room for improvisation, leaves room for chance, leaves room for luck to also play its own part. So I take the day as it comes and days as they come there. The only thing that I would do, only way sort of I could sort of give a more concrete answer to your question is that whatever I am doing 5 years from now will be something that benefits others, that solves an important problem for society or for businesses, etc. There, unlikely that even 5 years from now you'll see me sitting on the beach and drinking a cocktail. So whatever I do, I'll try and do my best to be productive and to make an impact to the world around me.
Okay, fine. Can you name your two competitors?
I don't have an exact answer to this question because okay, see, companies have competitors like whatever we are a risk automation company, so there are other companies which do similar kind of work. Maybe some are better, maybe some are less mature than what we are as a technology, etc. But personally, everybody around me is an individual, so many interesting things to learn, understand from everybody around me. So I don't consider, as an individual, I don't consider any other individual as my competition. It's just something fascinating to just get to know people, understand what they are, learn something from them, good and bad, and then adopt the good and correct yourself if so, you're seeing the same thing that they are doing, which is wrong. Uh,
Okay. Come up with a funny tagline to describe your company.
a funny tagline to describe our company. Um Cool place to work, solving an important business problem.
Okay, great. And do you have a favorite meme about CEO if you are active on social media?
I'm active in more professional social media of late, like LinkedIn. I unsubscribed from Twitter and some of the other sort of social media many years back there. But the one meme that I would use is you are a leader. You are not. curd rice or ice cream or anything like that, any other sort of, what shall I say,
Mm.
popular food item that you'd like to choose, because you are here to be effective. You're not here to be popular. So effectiveness is more valuable than popularity, and that's the sort of that's the meme that I have. The one that I remember in my mind is the one that says you're not curd rice, but like I said, I've seen others which say you're not ice cream, you're not many other kind of popular food. Uh, so effectively, you can't please everybody. So do what is necessary based on the circumstance that you find yourself in.
Yeah. Okay. What's the first thing you do when no one's watching you?
Uh, I guess there's nothing specific that I do when no one is watching me. I guess if nobody is watching me, I probably will be hunched over my laptop, working, or maybe whatever, reading a book or listening to music or something like that.
Okay. So the last question for fun section we have is that if you wouldn't be CEO of Alpha High, what would you rather be?
If I wasn't CEO of Alpha Hype, some other startup, some role in that startup, because like I said, too much of nervous energy. Sitting at home doing nothing is not an option. So therefore, I would probably be doing something with another startup if it weren't for Alpha Hype.
Hmm. Okay. So two more questions last, not to
Sure.
the fun section. One is my like personal question to you. Like, has the word fail ever scared you because you've made the courage to start two companies? So what's ever scary enough that what if it fails, it doesn't succeed?
It scares me every day, especially now. For example, Alpha is very small. We are very young, very few customers. So when in our sort of realistic assessment of where we are today, probability of failure is always higher than probability of success. And even when I was in my previous role at Mindtree, fear of failure always, it always exists. Because many things you try and many of them don't succeed as well there. But it is not just the quest. The fear is not just because of the failure itself. It's because what implications it has on others. You are responsible for team members. You're responsible for many things around you. And if you fail, you're letting down not just yourself. You're scarring or you're impacting many people around you there. So the fear of failure is constantly. At least in me, it is a constant. It always is there at the back of your mind. So the trick is to not allow it to paralyze you. Recognize it, understand it, acknowledge it, but keep moving forward. Because otherwise, fear sometimes can just paralyze you. So the trick is to recognize it, understand it, but like I said, move beyond it.
Good, good. Like it's so inspiring. Just don't let it paralyze you. Keep
Correct.
moving. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. One last question is your company helping in eradicating poverty? Because according to me, poverty is a serious concern. So,
I completely understand where you're coming from, and I totally subscribe to it. So yes, there are many areas, many communities, many people who are less fortunate than us, and you have to do whatever you can to help others. Personally, I come from a very disadvantaged background, and if it weren't for luck, if it weren't for God's grace, if it weren't for support of people, however you want to describe it, I'm extremely fortunate to be where I am, and therefore 120% aligned with you on the problem. At this juncture, obviously we are very small, we're not even profitable. So therefore, while we don't do anything specifically with respect to poverty, there are, what shall I say, within our ability, we do things. For example, poverty is obviously very well understood from a sort of financial poverty perspective, but there are other ways of poverty, right? Lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, lack of opportunities, so many other ways of defining poverty. So the area that at least at Alpha Hive, what we can contribute is helping improve awareness of cybersecurity risks amongst youngsters, especially college students, because at that age you're a teenager, you have have a phone, you're probably becoming to sort of, more, what shall I say, well versed with technology, entering into the cyberspace, digital world, etc., etc. So in our capacity, what we can do is to do a continuous amount of awareness building through training sessions in colleges, inviting kids to the office, social media posts, and so on and so forth. There, immediately, what we are able to do right now, from an organization perspective, is contribute to cybersecurity awareness, and that's at least one way of alleviating poverty. But at a personal level, the family that I am part of. There's a lot of things, whether it is sponsoring kids for education, many other ways by which we support at a family level. We do a lot of things to eradicate poverty. I also want to bring in another aspect to your question. It's not just an issue of those who are fortunate and those who are less fortunate. It's the inequality between the two. What the top 1% of society can accomplish, and what the bottom, whatever 1%, how difficult life is for them. So you're also conscious of it, whether it is, for example, shining the spotlight. While I was at Mindtree, we would voluntarily publish, pay gaps and so on and so forth. There. So many ways in the past we have done, continue to do, recognizing that this is a very important problem there. But finally, beyond all the active measures that you can do, one of the things that I am conscious about is that if you are fortunate, you also have the responsibility not to be very ostentatious. Just because you have things, you don't necessarily need to buy more things or show off, be very flashy, etc. So live life in a way that can resonate with the common man is also a responsibility that I think those who are fortunate, have against, those who are like less fortunate. I mean, just fact of life. But I think those who are fortunate should also practice, the level of, what should I say, simplicity that therefore doesn't disengage from those who are less fortunate.
Yeah. So contributing to society anyhow, like as you just
Exactly.
said, that poverty is not necessarily financial poverty, it could be
Mm,
opportunity, it could
correct.
be knowledge. So you are anyhow giving opportunities to people and letting them join your organization. So even that is a contribution to society.
Absolutely. I mean, you do to the extent that your resources permit. Hopefully, we will become luckier. The organization will become larger, and we can do more because, like I said, it is a very complex and a very large problem. But at every point in time, something is possible. So do what you can within the resources that are available to you.
Yeah, you never know. Miracles happen every time. I wish you
Correct.
all the very best for your organization. And
Thank
thank
you,
you
Mans.
so much. All the advices, all the takeaways, all the experiences you've shared with us have been so helpful to other people who will be watching this. Thank you for being there. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Stay tuned for the next interviews.
Thank you.
Thank
Wishing you and all your viewers very happy Deepavali. May the festival light bring happiness and peace to all the people who are watching this.
Happy Deepavali to you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay, bye.